What's going on? So, the subject of today's video is, are autistic people rude? And what I mean by that is, if you are a person on the spectrum or you know someone on the spectrum, you might notice that sometimes they seem to say things that are not nice in the context of what we would consider regular society. They don't seem to really be all that polite, depending on how severe the autism is and what point they're at on the spectrum. And I think that people on the spectrum can oftentimes come off as rude, because what you have to realize is that politeness and political correctness and tact are lies. They are disingenuous things that exist for the sake of preserving other people's feelings, but they are not actually based in truth. Let me give you a practical example of that. When I was a young guy, my dad introduced me to one of his girlfriends, a woman that he was dating. And she was a bit on the bigger side, I'll put it that way. When I beheld her, I said, "You're fat." And of course my dad wasn't too pleased about that. And I don't think she was either, but she's a sweetheart, so she just laughed. But as a kid, I did not have any sort of filter or tact or politeness. And one could say this is common in kids, but the thing about it is I was not so young that I didn't have any concept of, or I'll put it this way, I wasn't so young that I couldn't have already developed a feel for social rules to a certain extent if I wasn't on the spectrum, I'll put it that way. Because regardless what you think about kids, they're actually quite intelligent and they pick up on things very fast and very quickly. So I'm just using that as an example to say that people who are on the spectrum generally don't have tact as an inbuilt part of how they function. It is something that takes a lot of conscious effort in order to properly exercise, which is why, as I said, I think that a lot of people who are on the spectrum are often being misinterpreted as rude. But if you think about what rudeness is, if someone doesn't have bad intentions and they point something out, it just means they're being honest, which is something that we say we value as a human society. But what we really mean when we say that is we value honesty to the extent that it suits us and it protects our feelings. And people who are on the spectrum do not really function that way without a high amount of self-policing that is actually quite energy intensive, depending on where you are in the spectrum. And that's pretty much the subject of this video. It's not super complicated. It's just, I guess, encouraging people who are not on the spectrum to have a different perspective on autistic people that they are interacting with, if you are aware that they are on the spectrum. And be aware that people who are on the spectrum are not necessarily they're not necessarily attempting to be mean or unkind. It's simply them stating things that are self-evident, which in today's society is quite problematic. But I might get into that a little bit later. It's Friday night, and you know what that means. Sugar Saturday begins at 12 a.m. and I'm looking forward to it. 6 hours to go. Anyway, till the next time, keep it cool, and remember, you matter.